Yogah Karmasu Kaushalam.
Dear participants, greetings from Hanover. I am Pratik Desai, working as a deep learning engineer at Vidyantis GmbH in Hanover, Germany. I am very much delighted to introduce Dr. Sameer Roharia, who will speak on the topic Introduction to Big Data and its Application Areas. Dr. Sameer Roharia has completed a Bachelor of Electrical Engineering and MBA with the IT specialization from Maharaja Sayajirao University of Baroda. He did his PhD in ERP implementation from Gujarat Technical University, Ahmedabad. At the age of 41, he went for his second full-time master in data science program from Bologna Business School, University of Bologna from Italy. Dr. Sameer Roharia is having a 21 years of corporate and business management teaching experience in reputed universities and institutions within India and Germany. Currently, he is working as a data analyst in Comlink GmbH in Munich, Germany. He is also working as IT trainer on freelance basis, and he's appointed as an adjunct professor in Ganpat Technological University for last 4 years. Earlier, he worked as content manager for training and community in Continental AG in Hanover. In last 1 year, he has successfully completed 58 webinars and workshops and trained more than 5,500 industry professionals, faculty members and students in the area of Big Data, MS Power BI, Tableau and MS Excel. Dr. Roharia is a Microsoft certified Power BI and Excel professional, Microsoft certified trainer, Tableau desktop specialist and certified Google Analytics professional. He has taught business analytics course in 5 Indian universities. He has conducted 50 sessions for German, Polish and Slovenian students. Dr. Sameer Roharia has received 5 awards for teaching excellence from institutes of repute. He is a life member of Indian Society for Training and Development and Baroda Management Association. Now I would like to hand over the platform to Dr. Sameer Roharia.
Thank you, Pratik, for this great introduction. Hello all faculty colleagues. My name is Dr. Sameer Roharia and currently I am working as data analyst in Hanover, Germany. First of all, I would like to thank UGC, HRDC, Gujarat University, especially Dr. Jagdish Joshi, the director of this institute, for giving me an opportunity to be part of this refresher course. Now, today I'll be talking on the topic of Introduction to Big Data and its application areas. So let us jump to the topic. Thank you. Welcome to my presentation on Introduction to Big Data and its application areas. Now, before I start my presentation, I would like to highlight some of my certifications. So I'm having this Power BI certification from Microsoft and Microsoft Excel certification, then Microsoft Certified Solution Associate, and plus I'm regularly conducting the sessions and workshops for Power BI and Excel. So I'm Microsoft Certified Trainer also. And then similar to Power BI, we are having another tool that is known as Tableau. So there also I'm having this certification. Now, apart from this Power BI and Tableau and Excel, I am also teaching these business analytics courses, and I've taught this business analytics course in following Indian universities. So the first one is University of Mumbai, then Narsee Monjee College of Commerce and Economics. Then I'm very much associated with Ganpat University based in Mehsana, Gujarat. There I'm working as an adjunct professor, so I'm regularly conducting the sessions over there. Plus, I've taught this course in International School of Management in Patna, which is a PGDM institute, and Adi Shankara Business School, which is in Kerala. Let us start this presentation. So the flow of presentation will be like this. That first of all, I'll be talking about what is big data and why we are talking about big data. Then second one is the big data application areas. The third one will be the types of different job roles which are available in big data area. And the fourth one will be the Indian analytics market. Before I start this presentation, I would like to just go with an assumption that all of you are not knowing anything about big data. Yeah, though I know that some of you must be knowing, or you must have heard about big data, data science, and you must have worked with some tools also, but just to keep everybody on the same platform, that's why I'm going with this assumption. And I'll try my level best to make this session very lively and to make it very simple for all of you. I would like to start this presentation with a quote which is from a person known as Peter Sondergaard from Gartner Research. Now, Gartner Research, those of you who don't know, it's a very famous research company, and they are coming out with regular reports which are very, very authentic reports. So this person, Peter Sondergaard, he says that information is the oil of the 21st century and analytics is the combustion engine. So here he has highlighted two words, that is information and analytics. Now I'm very sure that you must have also heard another quote, that is data is the new oil. Now here this person has given importance to information, and we know that when we process data we get information. So here information is the oil of the 21st century, and we know that whenever anything is compared with the oil, it means that we are giving importance to that fact. Now just having oil, it's not important, so we have to also process that oil because we want to get energy out of it. So that's why we have to process information, and for that we are having this analytics. Yeah, so analytics is working as a combustion engine, and we are getting say knowledge out of it. So when we process information we get knowledge, and you also know that when we process knowledge then we get wisdom. So data, information, knowledge and wisdom, they are very well connected with each other. So this person has highlighted these two things, information and analytics. Now we start with the first topic, that is what is big data. Now before going into the definition of big data, let us understand that why we are now talking about big data, why it is so special nowadays, why this is a buzzword. So here you can see that we are having this diagram which shows that what is happening on internet in 1 minute, or I would say 60 seconds. So here you can see that in 60 seconds or 1 minute on Facebook 1.3 million scrollings are done. Then 21.1 billion texts are sent, SMS. Then on YouTube 500 hours of content are uploaded. Likewise, you can see that we are having so many apps are getting downloaded. Then on Instagram, so many stories are shared. Then so many tweets are done. Yeah, Tinder, which is very popular among the young people, so many swipes are done. So overall, if you can see that all these social media platforms, they are generating a lot of data. And who are responsible for this? We, the humans, are responsible, because we are using all these social media platforms. Now, whatever you are seeing over here, this is just in 60 seconds or 1 minute. So you can now assume that what will happen in 1 hour, or I would say 1 day or 1 month or 1 year. Yeah. So overall, when we see in 1 year, huge amount of data is getting generated over here. So this is one of the reasons that why we are talking about big data. The second one is Internet of Things. Yeah, I'm very sure that you must have heard this word IoT, short form is IoT. But if this concept is new for some of you, then I would like to just explain in a very simple words. What is IoT? So IoT is basically a network of devices which are connected with each other so that there is easy information exchange. So here you can see that, say for example, if I'm buying a new mobile, and then say after buying the mobile, if I'm inserting the SIM card, and then if my mobile is already having WhatsApp and Facebook, then immediately I'll start receiving the messages on WhatsApp. I'll be also seeing the post on Facebook, plus I can also share the information with my colleagues and friends. So what happens that as soon as my mobile gets connected to the internet, it is part of this IoT network. So here you can see that all these devices are connected with each other, and why they are connected, because there has to be some easy information exchange. So this is what is IoT, Internet of Things. Let us understand that how IoT is contributing to big data. So here you can see in this diagram, this graph, that on x-axis we are having the years, and then on y-axis we are having the number of devices which are in billions. So here you can see that in 1992 1 million devices were there all over the world. 1 million, or you can say that 10 lakh devices were there in 1992. And then you see that there is a steep increase in the number of devices. Last year, that is 2020, you can see over here that around 50 billion devices were there. 50 billion. Today, if you see a normal person, he or she must be having at least 3 to 4 devices. Now, devices means we are talking about the desktop, laptop, then our smartwatch, or we are having this iPad. So on an average, 3 to 4 devices are with one person in today's situation. So what happens that when more number of devices come into that IoT network, definitely they are going to generate data. So that's why IoT is also contributing to the growth of big data. So with these two things, let us now go further. So let us understand the different types of data. So here we are having three types of data, that is structured data, semi-structured data and the unstructured data. Now first of all, let us understand what is structured data. So structured data, as the name suggests, that it is having a structure. So structure means I'm talking about rows and columns, that is a table. So here we are talking about the comma separated value files, then Excel file, then database files. So these files, they are all having some kind of structure, and we store that data in that structure, in the table. Yeah, so this is known as the structured data. Now before I define what is semi-structured data, let me define what is unstructured data. Now unstructured data, as the name suggests, there is no structure. It means that there is no table. So here we are talking about files like JPG files, that picture files, then audio files, video files. Now see, whenever we get these kind of files, we cannot divide these files into pieces and we cannot put it into rows and columns. Whenever we are getting these files, we have to take these files as it is and then we have to process it. That's why these files are known as unstructured data. Yeah, these files are having unstructured data. And in today's world, I would say that around 90% of the data which is getting generated, it is this unstructured data, 90%. In earlier days, you can say that around 90% of the data was generated was structured data. Yeah, I would say that around 10 years back. But now 90% of data which is getting generated is unstructured data. From where we get this unstructured data? From the social media platforms. Then we come to the semi-structured data. So semi-structured, as the name suggests, that it is having the characteristic of both the things, that is structured as well as unstructured. Now let us take an example of email. So in email, say for example, if I want to write an email to say Mamta madam, okay, so definitely in the to column I have to write down her email ID. Then if I want to send email to all of you, I have to use the CC and BCC, and then we are having the subject line. So whatever this top portion which we are having in the email, that is the structured part. And then whatever is below, that is the actual message, that is the unstructured part. So say for example, if I'm writing an email to my friend, I'll be very informal. And whenever I'm writing an email to my boss, there my language will be very formal. So here it changes. So in email, you can say that email is a combination of both structured data plus unstructured data. That's why it is known as a semi-structured data. So I hope that I'm able to explain you these three types of data. Now with this, let us go and define what is big data. So here we are having the definition of big data, but before I explain you word by word, let me explain you what is big data with the help of these three V's. So here we are having these three V's, that is first one is known as volume, then second one is known as variety, and third one it is known as velocity. So let us start with first of all volume. Now see, whenever we hear this term big data, so always we think that yes, we are talking about huge volume of data or large volume of data. So that is true. So that's why we are having this first V, that is volume, large volume of data. Initially we were having terabytes of data. Yeah, currently if you see that we are having the hard disk which is of 1 terabyte or 2 terabytes. Yeah, but very soon we'll be going to have the 1 petabyte of hard disk. Okay, because in today's world we are generating a lot of data and that has to be stored somewhere. So that's why we want to have a large space for that storage. Yeah, for storage of that data. So we are having this volume. Now the second V is variety. Now what is variety? Variety, here you can see that any data which is having these three types of data, that is structured, unstructured and semi-structured. Yeah, just now we have seen the definition. So if you are having these three types of data, then that is what we mean by the variety in big data. The third one is velocity. Velocity means the rate at which the data is getting generated. So you must have heard this word that is known as ERP, that is Enterprise Resource Planning. So I have worked with in the ERP implementation, yeah, before I jumped into this area of teaching. So I was responsible for ERP implementation in one of the company in Baroda. Now before ERP came into picture, we were having the batch processing. Yeah. Now batch processing, what is batch processing? That, say for example, if I'm working as a accountant 20 years back or 25 years back, we were having softwares, but what was happening that in the smaller companies, the accountant was preparing the voucher manually. So whenever he or she used to get some money, he or she used to prepare that voucher, or whenever he or she is giving money to someone else, yeah, then also that voucher was getting prepared. Now those vouchers were prepared manually. Okay, so from morning till evening, that person will prepare, let's say, 100 vouchers. And then at the end of the day, he or she will enter those details into the system, into the software. And then he or she will come to know that, okay, how much money he received and how much money he gave to different people. So that was the earlier system. And we were already having this software known as Tally, which is very, very famous. So that was the scenario before ERP came into picture. Now after ERP came, ERP, I think so it came in India around 99 2000 year. Yeah, that was the period. So after ERP came, then we were talking about real-time data. Real-time data means as soon as the transaction is getting done, yeah, it is generated, immediately the data is entered into the system. With the help of ERP, the major benefit of ERP was that at any point of time you can create your balance sheet and profit and loss account. So that was very, very important over here. So we were talking about the real-time data. Then we are talking about the streaming data. Okay, so streaming data means it's like a continuous data which is getting generated. Okay, just now you are listening to my this session, so it does not mean that we are not receiving any message on our WhatsApp, or we are not getting any messages on Facebook also. Yeah, it is getting continuously generated. So now here what happens that whenever we want to do a perfect analysis in today's time, then we have to take those continuous data into our analysis. I cannot say that, okay, whatever the data which was generated till yesterday, only that data I'll be taking for my analysis. Because maybe today morning something must have happened in some parts of the world. Somewhere maybe some flood must have come, or somewhere some typhoon must have come. And what happens that when these kind of thing happens, then definitely the overall the market changes. Yeah, the financial things also changes. So that's why we have to always go for the continuous data. So overall you can say that these are the three V's which are available to define big data: volume, variety, and velocity. Now let us go back to the definition of big data. So here it says big data is defined as a term which handles the combination or also single parts of volume, variety, and velocity. Now this first line is very, very important. What it says, it is defined as a term which handles the combination or also single parts. Now what does it mean? See, normally people have a misconception that big data, whenever you are defining big data, it should have all the three V's. But this is totally wrong. If it is already having three V's, definitely it is defined as a big data, but that is not the only criteria. Say for example, if you are working in a bigger organization, you may have volume of data, but you may not have variety. Still that data is known as big data. If you are working in a smaller organization, you may have variety of data, but you may not have volume of data. In that case also it is termed as big data. So remember that for defining big data, you can have either one V or two V's or three V's. In all the cases, it is defined as a big data. Okay, so it's not compulsory that the data should have all the three characteristics. No, even if it is having just variety also, then also the data is known as big data. So here it is written the same thing, that is big data is defined as a term which handles the combination or also single parts of volume, variety, and velocity of data with cost effective innovative forms of information processing. Now this is important. See, normally people have a misconception again that especially the company people, that whenever if say I want to go for big data implementation, then definitely I have to invest a lot of money. But it is not true. In today's world, I would say that if you want to go for big data implementation, then there are many tools which are available, which are like open source tools. Open source tools, you must be knowing that they are totally free of cost. Say for example, if you want to work with Python, yeah, you must have heard these programming tools like Python, R programming. So Python, it's very, very easy. You go to their website, download that tool and you can start using that tool. Okay? You don't have to pay anything over there. Same way with R programming. Similarly, if you want to learn this MS Power BI, which I'm regularly conducting the workshop, so Power BI, it is having one major version that is known as Power BI Desktop, that is totally free of cost. Okay, you don't pay anything. So you go to their website, download the tool and start using that Power BI Desktop. Currently, all these big data tools, they are very cost effective plus innovative forms of information processing. And why we are doing all those things? To enable enhanced insight. Yeah, we want to get more insight out of our data. See, in today's world, what is happening that every organization, they are having huge amount of data, but they don't know that what to do with that data. So there, this data science or this big data come into picture. So enhance insight, then it also helps us in decision making and plus process automation. So whenever we want to automate our process from manual to automatic system, if we want to do it, then here also big data helps us in identifying that how the process will take place. So this is what is the definition of big data. But you can remember this big data with the help of these three V's, that is volume, variety and velocity. Now one another author, he came with these 7 V's of big data. So after initially we had 3 V's of big data, then came 7 V's of big data. Now in the 7 V's of big data, already these 3 V's are there, the earlier 3 V's, that is volume, velocity and variety. These 3 V's are already there. But apart from that, 4 more V's have been added by the second author, that is value, visualization, variability and veracity. Now currently, because of this less time, I'm not focusing on these other 4 V's, but definitely you can Google and you can get more information about these 4 V's. But normally we remember those 3 V's. Yeah, 3 V's are very, very important. That is volume, velocity and variety. Then after 7 V's of big data, we are having 10 V's of big data. Currently we are having 10 V's of big data. In this 10 V's also, already some of the V's are getting repeated. So we are having volume, velocity, variety, veracity, value, variability. These 6 V's are already there. And the person has added 4 more V's over here. So normally I tell the students that please complete your studies as fast as possible, because otherwise these V's and P's will increase. Yeah, in case of marketing, we know that like when I completed my MBA in 2000, we were having 4 P's of marketing only. But now I think so there are 7 to 8 P's which are available. So definitely these P's and V's will increase. Now from where we get the big data? So here this diagram shows the 3 sources from where we get the big data. So we are having the business process, then human generated data and the machine related data. First of all, we start with the business processes. So business processes means, say for example, we are talking about this ERP, then supply chain management, CRM. These are all the applications which are used regularly in the organizations and they generate data. Then we are talking about human generated data. So here we are talking about the different Word documents and email and web blogs and then different social media platforms. So here also huge amount of data is getting generated. And the last one is the machine related data. So here we are talking about the data which is getting generated by the CCTV cameras and sensors. Yeah, nowadays many of the machines, they are having sensors. So that sensors provide lot of information to the company as well as to the original manufacturing company. So they can tell you very well that okay, whether the machine is working very well or not. Yeah, or whether the machine is in good condition or not. So these sensors, they are generating every second lot of data. Plus we are talking about the satellite imaging and recording, M2M log files and bioinformatics. Here it is written 1x, 10x, 100x. Now what is this one? That whatever the amount of data which is getting generated by business processes, you can say that almost 10 times data is generated by the humans. And then again another 10 times is generated by the machines. So machines are generating the maximum amount of data related to big data, then come the humans and then come the business processes. So these are known as the data sources for big data. I hope that I have given you a brief idea about what is big data and then why we are talking about big data. Let us go further and then let us talk about these big data application areas. Okay, so now let us go for the second section, that is big data application areas. So here you can see in the picture that it is showing around 8 areas where big data can be applied, but please don't think that big data can be applied only in this 8 areas. This is just for the demonstration purpose, but you can say that big data can be applied in all the areas. So here we are talking about areas like banking and securities, then communication, media and entertainment, healthcare, manufacturing and say natural resources, insurance, retail, education, transportation. So let us start with the first one, that is this media. I'll be talking about one very famous series on Netflix which is known as House of Cards. Yeah, I don't know that how many of you have seen this series or you must have heard about this series. So this is a very famous series and it has made Netflix very popular. Now, what is so special about this House of Cards? Now, see, Netflix, we know everybody that, say, since last year when we were having this first lockdown in India, so many people they subscribed this Netflix OTT platform and then people were watching different series over there. Now, House of Cards. Now, basically, this House of Cards series it was very popular in UK. Say in UK, the OTT platform which was broadcasting this House of Cards series, so they were collecting lot of data from their customers. Say for example, at which particular scene the customer or that audience has stopped that scene, or when he has gone for the rewinding of the scene or fast forwarding the scene. Yeah, so they were noting all this information. Plus, they also gathered the information that okay, which dialogue was the best from a particular actor, which was not best, then which dress was suiting that actor or actress, which was the bad dress over here. So they also got all this information from their audience. Now what happened that Netflix they purchased the rights of this House of Cards series from that UK company, and then they also got this data. Now what happened that this Netflix did not re-telecast the original House of Cards on their platform, but what they did that they reinvented this House of Cards series. So they analyzed the data which was available from the audience, and then they prepared their own House of Cards series, and this series was so popular that it received 22 Emmy awards. Yeah, you must be knowing that these Emmy awards are very popular. So it received 22 Emmy awards since 2013, yeah, when this House of Cards series was launched. So if you have not seen this series, then I strongly recommend you to watch this series. This is based on the US politics. I would say overall the violence and all those things are very less. So if you like the political series, then definitely I say you should watch this series. So here Netflix has used big data to analyze the data from their audience and then to show only those things which are really liked by the audience. So that's why this series got so many awards. So this is about the media and entertainment. Now next thing we come to retail. Now in retail there are many applications, but let me give you some examples. So one of the example which is very popular that in US there is a superstore known as Target Superstore, and they are having a chain of superstores. So what happened that one day one young lady she went to that superstore and she bought some items over there, and she was regularly going to that one of that say, Target Superstore. She bought the items, she went to the cash counter, she paid the money, and she went back to her home. After 2 days she receives a physical letter from this Target Superstore, and it mentioned that okay, congratulations on being pregnant. Now based on your current or say the initial phase of your pregnancy, we would like to recommend you so and so products in our superstore. Okay, and we would like to give you some kind of discount. So this was the mail which had come from that Target Superstore. Now what happened that unfortunately that letter went into the hands of that girl's parents. Now the girl's parents were not knowing that their daughter is pregnant. So when they discussed about this letter, then that lady or that young girl, she was very furious. She went to the superstore and then she said that okay, say how can you send such kind of letter to my home? And then say how did you come to know that I'm in the initial phase of pregnancy? Because normally when we all know that when a lady is in the initial phase of pregnancy, then from the physical appearance you are not able to know that thing. This lady she asked this question, and then the superstore people they said that okay, up till now whatever the product that you were purchasing from our store, they were purchased by normal clients, but last time whatever you purchased, those products are normally purchased by the ladies who are pregnant or who are in the initial phase of pregnancy. So that's why we came to know about this thing, and that is why we send you this some discount coupons for your next purchase. So normally in case of marketing, we all know that whenever you want to target a customer, first of all you have to understand that who is that customer. So we have to do the profiling of the customer, and then we can really target that customer with our customized products. So here big data is used for identifying first of all that customer, who is that customer, and then targeting the customer with the relevant products. So ultimately the retail store wants to generate their own revenue, they want to increase the revenue, that's why they have to do this thing. Okay, and nowadays they are focusing on individual customers, not in general the group of customers, but individual customers. So this is one of the example which is there in retail. Now another example which I can give related to the retail is that, say for example, I'm going to a superstore. Now normally whenever we are going to a superstore, we prepare a list of items that we want to purchase. So I prepare a list of items that I have to purchase in that superstore. Then I go there. Then while I'm moving inside the superstore, I go to that savings section, and in the saving section, I see a new Gillette razor, in electric razor, yeah, or shaver, I would say. So there I see that new product. So then I get attracted towards the product. I then take that product into my hand. I see all those specifications, and then something comes in my mind that okay, already I'm having one electric shaver, so currently I don't require this shaver. Okay, so I put back that shaver into the shelf, and then I move forward. Now in retail stores, you know that they are having the CCTV cameras. So the CCTV camera has captured these things. Yeah, means what that I took that shaver into my hand, then I saw it for some few minutes, and then I placed back on the shelf. Now what happens that later on there are people who are there in the retail store who are analyzing these CCTV videos. So they identified that okay, this person, he took that shaver into his hand. It means that that person was interested in this product. Yeah, otherwise he would have not taken that product into his hand. And then what they do that maybe next day they will send me an email. There are many superstores, maybe if they are taking your personal details like this, so they will just send you an email. Yeah, so they will send me an email that okay, Dr. Wadia, thank you for visiting our store, and yeah, we would like to give you a special discount on so and so new Gillette electric shaver. So then I remember that yes, this was the shaver which I saw yesterday in the superstore. So then I see that okay, I'm getting some 30% discount. So normally that's a human tendency that whenever we are getting something at a low price or say getting some discount, so definitely we are getting attracted towards it. And even if we don't want to buy that product, but still that eagerness is there, yeah, that yes, I want to say purchase this product because maybe later on I may not be getting the discount. So next day I go to the superstore, I buy that shaver, and that was the target of that retail store. So what happens that say my point over here to give you this example is that in case of this retail store, initially these CCTV cameras were just installed just to see that people are not stealing the product. But now the same CCTV cameras are used for these kind of analysis. Yeah, they try to understand that okay, how the customer is moving within the retail store, and then where he's going, what he's buying, and finally, yeah, if he's not buying some product, then why? Means what is the reason? They want to understand these things, and then once they know that customer very well, then accordingly they can target that customer with some special offers. So this is how the big data application takes place in retail. The next one is big data applications in banking and financial services. So in case of banking, one of the major issue is about the credit card fraud transactions. Yeah, credit card, we know that sometimes it is giving us a lot of pain, especially when someone is stealing our credit card number and all the details, and then they are doing the transaction online. So there's a major problem, credit card fraud transaction in banking. Now, as such, we know that it's not a new problem. It has been there since the credit card was launched. Now, what was happening that earlier, before I would say like around 10 years back, so what was happening that the bank people wanted to know whether their system, their banking system is perfect or not, or whether it is secured or not. So they were already having some credit card fraud transactions, plus they were also having the other transactions, and then they wanted to analyze that whether their banking system is perfect or not. Now, in earlier days, I would say before 10 years, we were not having those kind of tools, big data tools, which can analyze all the transaction data together and then give you a final picture. So what was happening that if the bank wants to identify these issues, then they were taking a sample, because say let us assume that if there are say like 2 billion transactions in a particular bank, then definitely they cannot analyze, the tools cannot analyze the 2 billion transactions say before 10 years. So what they were doing, they were taking a sample out of it. So out of say 2 billion, they were taking a sample of say 10,000 transactions. Those transactions were randomly selected, and then they were analyzing those transactions, and then they were coming out with the final picture that whether the system is perfect or not. Now here, whenever you are going for a sampling, you know that what are the issues with this thing. Okay, in normally in your PhD and other research work also, we know the limitation of sampling. So we have to just assume that okay, whatever the result that we got by analyzing the sample, almost the similar result will be available when we analyze all the data. But most of the time this is wrong. Yeah, most of the time I see. So here also nowadays what is happening in case of banking, today there are big data tools which are available which can analyze all the transactions together. We are not talking about the sample, we are talking about the total transactions. So the big data tools will collect all those total transactions which have happened in the bank. It will analyze the data, and then it will give you the full and final picture. So here the result which is available, that is very perfect result, because you are taking all the transactions, you are not going for a sampling. Similarly, for financial services, you can say that in case of financial services, say for example, if a bank wants to say launch some new product for their customers, so what they will do, that they will analyze their past data. So what was the general liking of the customers for a particular product, which products were highly sellable, which were not highly sellable. So they will analyze all those things, and then they will try to come out with the new products. And the bank people wants to be very sure that those new products should be very successful, means people should buy those products. So that's why here also big data can help you in launching new products. Like the big data will tell you that okay, which products you can create and which will be more sellable in the market. So here overall I've given you the example of big data applications in banking and financial services. Now the next one is big data applications in insurance. Now in insurance also there are many examples. One of the example is about the life insurance. So say for example, currently I am of the age of 45. Now if I want to take a life insurance, then definitely I'll go to a company, a life insurance company. The life insurance company people will be asking me a few questions. First of all, they'll be asking me my age. So I'll say that okay, I'm 45 years old. Then they will ask me that okay, how much insurance amount you want to have. So I say that okay, I want to have an insurance amount of say 50 lakh rupees. Then they will ask me that okay, you want to have this insurance for how much period, whether you want to have it for 10 years or 15 years or 5 years or 20 years. So that okay, so I'll say that okay, I want to have a insurance for the 20 years. Now you imagine that there is also one of my friend who is also of my age, and he also wants to buy the same insurance policy, same period, same insurance amount, everything is same. So definitely when our insurance policy and everything is same, definitely we'll be paying the same insurance premium every year. Now there is a difference between me and my friend. My friend is very much health conscious. He is doing a lot of exercises every day. He is also eating a lot of diet food every day. Yeah, so he's overall he's taking care of his health. Now I am just opposite. Okay, here just I am giving you for an example. Okay, don't consider that it is the actual scenario. So I'm just opposite to my friend. I'm not eating those diet food. I'm eating a lot of junk food, no exercise, nothing. In present situation, what is happening that me and my friend, though our lifestyle is different, but overall we are paying the same insurance premium every year. But very soon it is going to come in India also that maybe it is possible that in the first year of our insurance we'll be paying the same premium. Say for example 20,000. Okay, so we'll be paying the same insurance premium, but second year, I'll be paying more premium and my friend will be paying less premium. Now the question comes how? How the insurance companies will identify that okay, I have to pay more premium in the second year. See, insurance companies will give you some kind of a health watch. So they will give you a health watch and then through that health watch they'll be getting the data related to your health records. Okay, now here sometimes some people may have a question that we are talking about data privacy and all those things. So definitely here insurance company will say that okay, if you want to buy an insurance, then definitely you have to purchase this health watch. Or if you are having your own health watch, then that health watch has to be connected with their system so that they get regular information. So through that health watch they will be getting data about that, okay, how many steps you have taken today, or how much jogging you have done, and then how much calories you have burned. So through that thing they will be collecting the data for say 1 year, and then based on that 1 year data they will analyze the data, and then they will finalize your second year premium. So if you are really taking care of your health, then definitely your premium amount will get reduced. If you are eating junk food and all those things, then definitely your premium amount will be more compared to the first year, because here insurance company also wants to have some kind of insurance, because if your lifestyle is not good enough, then there are full chances that you may get infected by some diseases like say diabetes or cancer or any other disease. This is how this big data applications is implemented in insurance. There are many other examples, but let us limit ourselves to the timing. Now, big data applications in healthcare. In healthcare, I have seen that there are huge amount of applications which are there in related to big data. Now, these are some of the points which are available, but I will not be explaining all the points. Just I'll like to explain you one or two points over here. First one is this patient's predictions for an improved staffing. Now, see, today in today's scenario, whenever we are talking about maybe smaller hospital or large hospitals, one of the major issue is about the staffing. Staffing means for a particular shift, how many doctors we require, or how many nurses we require, or how many ward boys we require. So that's the major issue, because sometimes what happens that if you are thinking that okay, today you will have a very less number of patients, yeah, your OPD will be less, but suddenly you find that there are huge amount of patients are coming, and that's why you are not able to manage it because you are having less staff. So here big data can help you to go or to predict the patients, the number of patients which will come in the next 1 week or so. So if you know already that in general, so what will be the approximate number of patients which will be coming to your hospital, then accordingly you can do the staffing very well. Yes, preparing the staff plan, it's very easy, but to get these kind of prediction, that is very difficult. But with the help of big data, you can definitely do these predictions and you can improve your staffing. The second example here, it is mentioning that predicting diseases like cancer and diabetes. Now see, today if you go to your family doctor and if you ask them a question that, doctor, can you please tell me which disease I'll get infected in next 10 years or next 15 years, definitely he or she will not be able to give you this answer, because the doctor cannot do these kind of predictions. But here big data will help you to predict these things. So what big data will do, that it will gather all your data, your past health data plus your current data, and it will also take data of your current lifestyle, whether you are doing exercise and eating junk food and all those things. It will take this data also, and then based on this total data it will try to predict. Because if you are currently, if your lifestyle is very bad, if you are suffering from some disease, then definitely there are full chances that you may have these kind of disease like cancer and diabetes. I pray to God that none of you will have these kind of disease. But yes, one of the benefit of big data is that today if someone tells me, if this big data tells me that okay, if you continue with this kind of lifestyle, then say after 15 years you may get diabetes. So today if I know that okay, I may have this diabetes, then from today onwards I'll be very, very particular. I'll be very cautious about my health and about my exercise and all those things. So here big data can do these kind of predictions, long-term predictions, next 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. So it can do these predictions, and almost these predictions are very accurate. So these are some of the applications in healthcare. Then we talk about the agriculture. So in agriculture also there are huge amount of applications. So here just I would like to show you one small video, and let us understand that how big data can be applied in agriculture.
With precision agriculture, farmers need to know precisely what inputs are needed where, in what amount, and when. This requires collecting a lot of information from different sources and in different parts of the field, on things like soil nutrients, the presence of pests and weeds, the level of greenness of the plants, inputs applied, and the weather forecast. Once collected, this information needs to be analyzed to produce agronomic recommendations. For instance, given the developmental stage of a plant, its level of greenness may reveal its nutritional needs. This information, combined with the characteristics of the soil where the plant is located and a forecast of the weather, can be used to determine how much of a certain fertilizer should be applied to that plant the next day. Delivering agronomic recommendations on time to farmers and ensuring they are able to apply these recommendations is key. Farmers need to have all the necessary inputs at hand and be able to translate the recommendations into actions in the field. To solve this problem, big farmers use sophisticated machinery that collects georeferenced information on soil characteristics, yields, and greenness of the plants. These machines are often connected to the internet and send the information automatically to ag big data firms that analyze the information and send agronomic instructions back to the machines, which are able to automatically apply them in the field. For instance, using robotic devices attached to GPS-guided tractors. However, solutions like these may be economically infeasible for medium and small-scale farmers. These farmers lack the scale to afford that sophisticated machinery, lack the knowledge to operate the non-automatic aspects of the machines, and lack the resources to hire a person who knows how to do it. Sometimes, many of the necessary complements are not readily available, or there is no connection to the internet, or there are not sufficient skilled workers. However, a number of solutions are being developed to many of the problems that medium and small-scale farmers face when trying to implement precision agriculture technologies. Easy-to-operate economic sensors to measure soil humidity, salinity, and nutrient content. Portable networks to transmit the data collected by field sensors to a central location, as well as economic ways to connect to the internet. Remote sensing through the use of satellite imagery to assess the health status of plants in an economic way, and without requiring that producers know how to operate a device or interpret complex data. The new sharing economy is creating opportunities for farmers to just pay for the services they need, whenever they need them, very similar to the way that Uber operates. And there are many firms competing to provide other services such as drones, data analytics, and forecasting. All of these technological developments are pieces of a puzzle that needs to be put together to make precision agriculture a real option for medium and small-scale producers.
Okay, so here we could see different applications which can be implemented in the agriculture sector. So there is huge opportunity over here. Now let us go to the last topic in this big data application, that is big data applications in forensic science. 1 month back I conducted one session for the National Forensic Science University in Gandhinagar. For giving an understanding to the students and faculty members, I identified this YouTube video. So this is talking about that how Visa, Visa, a company you know very well. So how Visa company is tackling this, I would say, this credit card frauds, and how they are identifying a particular transaction which is totally having a fault. So let us see this video so that you are having an idea about how big data applications can be done in forensic science.
For 25 years, Visa's artificial intelligence has been getting smarter, and smarter, and smarter, to the point where you probably haven't had a transaction declined for suspected fraud in quite a while. But did you know? Every time you use your card, Visa's AI is learning. Every purchase you make helps Visa get even better at protecting your next transaction. Visa's AI doesn't know your name or exactly what you bought. It sees activities and patterns to learn what your typical purchase behavior looks like, so that even before you make your first purchase, we can spot suspicious activity. For every attempted purchase, Visa's AI assesses fraud risk, so that the bank that issued your card can approve or deny the transaction, or send a text asking you to confirm an unusual payment. Let's take a closer look at how it works. Every Visa account has a profile of previous transaction data. Each time you buy something, the account profile is updated and compared to the spending behavior of more than 3 billion other accounts, making roughly 180 billion annual transactions. This behavior is grouped into clusters, and your account could be in hundreds or thousands of these groups. The activity in these clusters helps Visa understand whether a transaction fits a pattern or departs from the norm enough to be flagged as high risk for fraud and possibly declined by the issuer's bank. So, in 1 week, you could buy a gift for your cousin's wedding, burritos near the office, the tattoo you'll later regret, tickets to a music festival, a return ticket for your business trip to Peru, and hang gliding lessons so you can jump off a cliff while you're there. And none will be declined. Because even though your week seems unique, there are many others out there who also use their Visa accounts to enjoy body art, business travel, and cliff jumping. The more purchases people make, the smarter Visa's AI becomes, ensuring that even your wildest week or very first purchase will make sense to Visa's AI. Or doesn't, resulting in fraud detection when you need it, and approvals when you want them. In fact, since you started watching this video, Visa's community has helped our AI analyze more than 600,000 transactions for fraud, ensuring that your hang gliding lesson gets off the ground as smoothly as your transaction approval.
Okay, so that was a very good video on how Visa is tackling this issue of the credit card frauds. They are doing a great work over here. So let us go to the next topic. Third topic, that is types of job roles which are available in this big data area. So in general, there are three major roles which are available, that is data analyst, data engineer, and data scientist. So let us understand a little bit in detail that how they are different from each other. First of all, who are data analysts? So here it mentions that they are experienced data professionals in their organization who can query and process data, provide reports, summarize and visualize data. So first of all, I would like to inform all of you that anybody can become a data analyst. There is a misconception among the people that for becoming data analyst, you require the programming knowledge. But in my sense, I would say that you don't require any programming knowledge initially. Later on, definitely you require that knowledge. But initially, when you want to start your career as a data analyst, then programming is not required. So what is the job of data analyst? So first of all, the data analyst, they gather the data from different sources. Then they process the data, they prepare these kind of reports where they are creating a lot of visualizations, and they summarize the data. The tools which are used by these persons are MS Excel, SQL, SPSS, SAS, MS Access, Power BI, Tableau. Yeah, Power BI and Tableau, these are the latest tools which are available for the data visualization. So in general, if someone asks me that I want to make my career as a data analyst, then which tools are required? So I would strongly recommend this MS Excel, yeah, because most of the companies, they are using MS Excel. Then you should have the knowledge definitely of SQL, and plus I would say Power BI or Tableau, or if you know both the tools, it's great, because some of the organizations, they are using Power BI, some organizations are using Tableau. So if you are having the basic knowledge of these two tools, then definitely it can help you. Apart from that, if you are working in some research companies, then definitely you require also the knowledge of SPSS or SAS. So this is what we mean by the data analyst. Now data engineers. So who are data engineers? So here it says that they are data professionals who prepare the big data infrastructure to be analyzed by data scientists. So the role of these data engineers is very, very important. What they do, that first of all, you just imagine that there is a big organization, and they are having a lot of offices, they are having different plants in different locations. So every plant, every department, they generate a lot of data. Now, if you want to have a full picture of an organization, then definitely you have to collect the data from different sources. Then you have to do the data cleaning and data transformation. Yeah, data cleaning and data transformation is very, very important step, because directly if you take the data, raw data, and if you start doing some kind of visualization, or if you are doing some kind of analysis, then definitely the data or the analysis will not be perfect, because the raw data is always containing some kind of errors, some null values, some blank columns, blank rows. If we directly use it for data analysis, it's not good. And in computer, I think so, you must have heard one term that is known as GIGO, garbage in, garbage out. Yeah, now what is garbage in, garbage out? That if you input garbage into the system, or I would say if you input the garbage into computer, definitely your computer will give you garbage as an output. So that's why this data cleaning and data transformation is very, very important. So this is what is done by this person, data engineer, and plus he or she also does the data integration. Because see, this data integration, I'm using this word in just like half a second, but when you do the data integration, it takes a lot of time. See what happens that when you are gathering the data from different departments, then every department they are having their own table format. So whenever you want to integrate the data from different departments, then you have to change that format. Yeah, some of the formats, the table format you have to change, and then you can integrate the data. So this task is very, very important. So that's why the role of data engineer is very, very important. And plus he or she is always working in the background. Then the tools which are available for data engineers are Hadoop, SQL, NoSQL, Hive, Peak programming, and much, much more. Yeah. So don't worry if you have not heard these tools, but just I would like to give you an idea. And don't think that these are the only tools which are available for data engineer. There are many, many tools which are available. Here, just for a demonstration purpose, I have written these names. So these are data engineers. Now the next level is data scientist. So first of all, a question comes that who are data scientists? So here it says that someone who can turn raw data into purified insight. So you give raw data to this person and that person will analyze that data and then he or she will give you a good amount of insight from your data. Now in my term, I would say that data scientists, they are known as all-rounders. In cricket also we know that there are all-rounders. So that all-rounder means the person in cricket, he or she should have good batting, good bowling and good fielding. Why data scientists are known as all-rounders? Because this person should have the knowledge of many things. He should be very good in statistics, then machine learning, mathematics, different analytical models, much, much more. And plus he or she should also have the knowledge about the different business processes, because this person has to solve the critical business problems. So whatever every business, they are having some kind of issues. So this person has to understand that problem and then he or she has to provide solution to that problem. That is what is the job role of a data scientist. Now the tools which are generally used by data scientists are Python, R, Scala, Apache Spark, Hadoop, machine learning, deep learning, statistics, and much, much more. Now, as this person is known as an all-rounder, that's why this person is always paid the highest salary. So out of these three categories, that is data analyst, data engineer, and data scientists are always paid the highest salary. In US, they are paid almost like 1,30,000 US dollars per year. If I talk about say Europe, then in general around 1 lakh euros are paid per year to a data scientist. And remember that every company cannot afford to have a data scientist because of the high salary. So in general, whenever I'm talking about the job opportunities, then when you search on LinkedIn or any other job platform, then definitely you will find more jobs related to the data analyst position, then little bit lesser position related to the data engineer, and then lesser number of positions you will find for the data scientist. But don't think that if the positions are less for data scientists, then there is less demand. No, the demand is very high. In US itself, there is a demand of almost like around 2 lakh data scientists in the next 3 to 4 years. Now, if you focus on India and other, I would say, developed countries or developing countries, there is a huge demand, yeah, for data scientists. And the same applies to data engineer as well as data analyst. Now, data analyst, why the job positions are more? Because the salary is comparatively less. And definitely, if there is a smaller company or a medium-sized company, then for them, I would say that data analysts are really affordable. Yeah, they can pay some salary, good amount of salary, and they can get the work done. And normally, the smaller companies will not be interested in applying the different machine learning models and deep learning models. Yeah, they want to just see that data, they want to just visualize the data and get some insight out of that data. So that is what is the role of the data analyst. So I hope that I have made these things very clear about these three different positions: data analyst, data scientist, and data engineers. Now these are the top big data tools which are available. So we are talking about Python, R, SQL, Hadoop, Scala, Apache Spark. Yeah, these are the top big data tools which are very popular. Then we are talking about the top data visualization tools. So we are talking about Power BI, then Tableau, then ClickSense, ThoughtSpot, MicroStrategy, and TIBCO. Yeah, currently Power BI is number 1, Tableau is number 2, and likewise this is 3, 4, 5, and 6 position. But mostly the companies either use Power BI or Tableau. Now the last topic for our this session is Indian analytics market. So I'll give you an overview that what is the current situation of the Indian analytics market and what is the future also. So overview of Indian data analytics industry. What it says that the analytics market in India is currently valued at 45.4 billion US dollars. So it's a big market, yeah, 45.4 billion US dollars. The market is growing at a compounded annual growth rate of 21.2% till 2026. So it's also good news for all of us. It is employing more than 1,20,000 people. This fourth line, this is very, very important, especially because you are all faculty members, so you can motivate your students for having a startup in this big data area. So what it says that there are almost more than 600 companies which are there in India, which are working in this big data area, out of which 400 are startups. So normally I always tell the students that if you want to have your startup in this big data area, then how much investment you require? You require just one laptop, an internet connection, that's all. Okay, because as I've said earlier that all the major big data tools, they are either open source tools or they are, say, their amount is very, very less. Yeah, their expenses are very less. So you can have your laptop, you can work from a laptop, and you can work from home. Nowadays, because of pandemic, this is a good thing that in India many people are working from home. So here also you are saving a lot of money because you don't require any office for that. But yeah, startup is very much possible in this area. So this you can tell to your students. Yeah, you can motivate your students over here. But definitely just having the startup is not important. First of all, I always recommend that the students should first of all gain experience. So they should either work in some startup as an employee or they should work in some bigger organizations and gain experience. And maybe after 2 to 3 years of experience, then you can go for a startup, because directly अगर आप startup open करोगे, definitely it is not going to work because you don't know, or you have to first of all get the client. Okay, simple laptop लेके बैठ जाओगे, that will not make sense. You have to have the order, the data analytics order. So that is where you get experience, try to understand that how the startups are working or how the big companies are working, what kind of project they are working on it. And then when you have your own startup, then you can tie up with some of your customers. Sectors which are getting benefited are, these are some of the few sectors. Yeah, don't consider that these are the only sectors where big data can be applied. Yeah, earlier also I mentioned this thing. What is the future of data analytics in India? It says that the Indian analytics industry is expected to grow to a market size of 98 billion US dollars by 2025. What is the current market? I've already given you the figure. It is around 45 billion US dollars, and in next, you can say now 4 years, it is going to get doubled. And then by 2026, it will be around 120 billion US dollars. Yeah, so it's a big market. So here it is mentioning the same thing, that is analytics market is expected to double by 2025. Then India will have 32% share in global market. So here also it's a good for our country, and there'll be increased demand in industries again like banking, financial services, insurance, retail, telecom, healthcare. Okay, so more and more services will come in these areas and other areas also. So in general, I can say that the future of data analytics in India is very, very bright. So I can again recommend you that please motivate your students that they can make their career over here. It's a totally a new career and there are a lot of opportunities. Yeah, I'm not saying that the other careers are bad, but yes, if they want to do something different, then this is the area where they can do something different. Yeah, but definitely they have to first of all get themselves ready. They have to learn those tools, they have to get the hands-on experience, and then they can jump into this area. Now, before I wind up this session, just I would like to give you a brief introduction about Tableau and Power BI. Maybe I don't know that how many of you know about these tools. So Tableau, what is Tableau and what is Power BI? Both the tools, yeah, Tableau and Power BI, they are known as data visualization tools. So just we know that in MS Excel, we can create a lot of different charts. So MS Excel is also one kind of data visualization tool. But now these two tools, Tableau and Power BI, they are much more user friendly. Based on my experience, I can very well recommend you that these tools are much more user friendly compared to Excel. But if you are already having experience in Excel, then if you want to say move to this tool, then it is very, very easy. Both the tools are holding top positions in analytics and BI market. Yeah, BI, it is standing for business intelligence. They are more user friendly than MS Excel. This is what I just now mentioned. Then again, Power BI desktop and Tableau public versions are totally free of cost. Yeah, so if you want to learn this tool, then you don't have to pay anything. If you go to that Microsoft Power BI page and if you go to this desktop area, then definitely you can download that tool for free and you can start using this tool. Also for Tableau public version which is there, this is also free of cost. So both these tools are free of cost initially, and later on if you want to go into detail, then maybe you may have to pay some amount, but that is also minimum amount. But in general, initially for learning purpose, these two tools are totally free of cost. Now, just to give you idea about my different trainings, here I worked, that is known as Continental. Continental, that is famous for tires. There I conducted mostly these workshops on Power BI. So totally in Continental, I conducted 34 workshops in 7 months, and I trained around 1,750 my worldwide colleagues. Yeah, so it was a great experience for me. And Power BI I learned on my own. I learned from the different online platforms, like mostly my famous learning platform is Udemy. So from there I learned on my own this Power BI, and then I started conducting the training. Then in this last 1 year, I've been working as a freelancer. I'm regularly conducting these workshops on Tableau and Power BI, and till date I've conducted around total 22 workshops, and normally my workshops are of 5 days and every day it is of 2 hours, so total it is of 10 hours. And up till now I've trained around 1450. Now here this number consists of industry professionals, then faculty colleagues and the students. Yeah, even the students, they have also learned. I would say that out of this 1450, approximately at least around 800 to 900 will be the students. So there's a huge amount over here. Yeah, so maybe if you are interested, we can have these kind of workshop. Now these are some of my Power BI workshop which I've conducted till date. So as I've mentioned earlier, I'm very much associated with Ganpat University. Then this is Power BI which was conducted at Adi Shankara Business School in Kerala. Likewise, Lakshmi Institute, and these are some of the workshop which I've conducted. Even in Germany also, this Indian Association, Indian Association Hanover, they arranged my workshop for the local Indian members. Then my own Faculty of Management Studies in my alma mater, MS University, they also had arranged this Power BI workshop in March. Then Rafael Institute, where I also worked in Vapi, there also they conducted this workshop. Yeah. So likewise, again Ganpat University, then National Forensic Science University, they also arranged my Power BI workshop. Then Narmada College of Management, where I started my initial teaching career. So recently I conducted the workshop, and this is my last workshop up till now. Yeah, it was from 20 to 24th of July. So these are all my Power BI workshops. Similarly, I'm also conducting workshops on Tableau. So I conducted this workshop in this IFET Engineering College in Tamil Nadu. Then I'm also associated with one training institute in Baroda, and they are regularly conducting these my workshops. Yeah, so it's basically this is a 5 days workshop, both Tableau and Power BI. And in Tableau, these are some of the topics which I conduct. And normally all these workshops I start from the scratch. Yeah, so I assume that none of you know anything about Tableau or Power BI, and from that level I take you to the intermediate level. Yeah, so this is how I conduct the workshop. It is totally practical. Yeah, you will be doing all those steps with me. It will be a live workshop, so you can learn immediately those things. So my purpose of conducting these kind of workshop is to make you aware about these tools, and plus sometimes it happens that whenever you are trying something new, then either you may have fear about that tool or you may have anxiety. So my job is to remove that fear and anxiety by conducting these kind of workshops. So these are some of my workshops related to Tableau. Great. So thank you very much for patiently listening to me, and I hope that I've given you fair idea about what is big data, then what are the application areas of big data, what are the different types of job roles which are available, and then I've also given you an idea about the Indian analytics market. So this is my email ID, this is my WhatsApp number, and I'm connected on Facebook. I'm also connected on LinkedIn. Maybe we can get in touch through this platform also. If you are interested in learning these tools like Power BI, Tableau, even I'm also conducting regularly this MS Excel workshops also, though I have not mentioned over here. But yeah, I'm also conducting MS Excel workshop for the faculty members as well as the students also. So you can get all those details on Facebook. Normally I post those information, and as your faculty members, then if you want to conduct such kind of my say workshops in your college, then definitely you can contact me. It will be my pleasure to share my whatever my knowledge which I'm having in this area. So thank you once again, and I'm again thankful to the UGC HRDC Gujarat University, and especially Dr. Jagdish Joshi and Mamta Madam for giving me an opportunity to be part of this refresher course, and hope to see you all again either in some webinar or in the workshop. So thank you very much, and I wish you a nice time and best wishes for the future. Thank you very much. Bye bye.